Hello and welcome to another episode of the Inside Athletic podcast, the official club podcast of Dunfermline Athletic Football Club. I'm Logan back, and once again I'm joined for the first time in person on the podcast with Ricki. Ricki, how are we doing this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Good to do it in person, see a happy face. Looking forward to catching up with the CEO today and getting some insight on what's it like behind the club.
And as you can see, we're joined by the club CEO, David Cook. David, how are we doing this afternoon?
Great, thanks. Yeah, beautiful sunny day here in Dunfermline. Nice to be here.
So we're going to be touching just on the club update first from David. First of all, David, it's been a great few weeks for the club. 3-3-0 wins in a row at the time of recording and get to the Scottish Cup semi-final for the first time in 17 years. You must be delighted with how it's been.
Well, just like every supporter, I'm over the moon with where we are at the moment. You know, you can see real progress on the pitch, and you know what was Saturday like, you know, against Aberdeen, and then following that up against Raith Rovers. Brilliant for everyone involved, players, coaches, board members, supporters. That's, you know, we feel like we're moving in the right direction. A special couple of weeks with some of those performances.
And what does that mean to the club as a whole, that return to Hampden, first time in 17 years? Obviously from a fan's perspective, really exciting, but from a club perspective, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's massive for multiple reasons. You know, of course, like we're in the football business to win games, right? I mean, taking the club to Hampden is a great sign of progress for everything that's going on at the club. I think it also is great in terms of profile of the football club, putting us back on that stage where not just a nationwide audience watching that, but an international audience watching that as well. And games like beating Hibs and Aberdeen here, again, the amount of comments I've had from people that I know in the football industry or around the world, it's reminded people that Dunfermline is a football club that's used to days like that, and that's what, you know, we thrive on that, and we strive to get back to doing more of that.
And obviously in the draw, we got our rivals Falkirk. A great day at Hampden ahead. And what was your initial thoughts when getting that draw?
Well, I thought it was inevitable. It was going to be Falkirk. You know, I got a message at the full-time whistle from the CEO of Falkirk, and I said to him, it's inevitable that this is happening. So, I think it's a special occasion. Whenever we play Falkirk, it'll be a really special occasion playing them again at Hampden. Fingers crossed we can get a better result than the last time we played them there.
Yeah, high risk, high reward for that
Exactly.
game, but yeah, looking forward to it. And I guess the question on everyone's lips around the ground is ticketing. Everyone's really excited to get their hands on the briefs. So is there any update from the club at all on ticketing?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of been waiting for the Scottish FA for a lot of that. A bit like you guys, we're apprehensive and really keen to get a full picture of all those plans, so that we can communicate that to supporters, but then actually get into the process of selling that. You know, the SFA lead on that. We've not actually had a huge amount of input into it. So things like the segregations, the ticket prices, the allocations, that's all really been driven primarily from the SFA rather than from the clubs.
So I had a vision of all the CEOs being in a room at Hampden thrashing it out about ticket prices and allocations. That's not what happens?
Not what happened at all, you know, and I think just obviously we've tried to be really competitive in our pricing for the games, you know, which we feel has played a part on getting a sellout against Hibs and Aberdeen. You know, 20 quid tickets for adults we think is a great value proposition, but our ambition was, let's get this place jumping and rocking. You know, I think you've got to bear in mind that this is a national competition played at Hampden, so I don't think it will be as competitive in that when it comes to the pricing, but we'll certainly push as much as we can to share that message to the authorities.
We've seen a lot on social media and since the semi-final draw about buses going to Hampden and the backing that supporters have been given, certain supporters clubs putting on buses and things like that. Is there any thing that the club are going to do to put on buses for the supporters, or any funding for that?
Yeah, we're certainly trying to put together a bus offering. You make a great point though, Logan, that everyone has been on the case. So we're speaking to bus companies and really struggling to get availability for buses, but our desire would certainly be able to offer something where, you know, groups of supporters could go on official travel to the game. We don't even want to make a penny out of that. That really is, for us, is about a service to our supporters. But it's very, very challenging when it comes to actually securing and locating buses that we can access.
Yeah, I think there's air races around that weekend as well, and that's proven a lot of buses
absolutely.
going that way.
Absolutely,
okay.
yeah.
Well, we're all looking forward to Hampden. Just a change of tack slightly, looking at the financial results that came out quite recently, maybe some eye-watering numbers in there for fans, and I know that the memories of 2013 maybe are still fresh in the memory of quite a lot of fans. So can you take us through what those numbers mean for maybe the layman like me who doesn't really know what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we posted large losses, 1.7 million losses, which clearly that is a big number, and that we've got to look to address and try and work that through. A lot of it is quite explainable in the sense that it was a year that we went through the ownership change, clearly with new owners coming in, new ambition, a desire to impact on the sporting results at that stage. I covered it in quite a bit of detail within the accounts about some of that information, but in the year that meant that we really ramped up the investment in the playing squad for the back end of the season, as we didn't want to face a potential relegation campaign. We obviously changed the manager twice in the year as well, which had a significant impact on that. And then what we've been trying to do, which again has had big impact on it, has been really transform the performance environment that we've got. So as well as investment into players and into the first team coaching staff, we've also invested quite heavily into the performance aspect, sports science, nutrition. We've improved the medical department. So a lot of that investment is going into those areas, which, when it tallies up, is quite significant losses.
I think even on the sidelines and in the dugout, you see how many staff there is now at the club, and that feels like it's changed a little from over the last few years, where we do have that kind of background knowledge. So
yeah, I mean, we're certainly not at levels of some Premier League clubs, but we've tried to really build out that performance culture, and if we want to be as fit as we possibly can, as strong as we possibly can, as medically sound as we possibly can, ultimately that is headcount, that is resource to give us the right skills to go and try and improve the club.
You mentioned obviously the manager changes from that period, and it's been nearly a year since Neil was appointed as manager. Yeah. Just how much progress can you see from that year, on the pitch and off the pitch as well?
Well, I'll throw it back on it. What do you see progress?
Yeah, I think we both do. I think
because I feel it. I feel the progress. I see it. Obviously, I'm here every day. Like you, Logan, and we see it and we can feel it. Neil's great. I can't speak highly enough of Neil and the impact he's had on the football club. His character, his drive, his experience, his knowledge, how he builds a team and makes everyone feel part of that. He's a real great operator. So we've been delighted to have him on board. Obviously, I think our ability to attract someone of Neil's calibre speaks volumes to the vision and the planning of our ownership as well. So that it always played its part into that. And I'm really excited at the direction of travel. I think we've already scored more goals than we did in the whole of last season. We've already got a higher points total. So there's a number of factors there. A number of wins this season we've already exceeded last year. So even if you just look at the simple stats like that, there's clear progress in the last 12 months. And I think then you look at the squad. I see a squad which has value. I see a squad that can continue to grow, improve, develop. So I feel like we're moving really in the right direction with Neil at the helm.
And obviously we mentioned we've had a couple of big games recently under Neil, and it seems to be that he thrives in that sort of environment in those big games.
Comes alive in them, doesn't he? Not to say that he's not a driving force in them all, but you can see his experience and his successes at that level. I think you can see he revels in that.
And obviously we had a visit from the owners over the last few weeks as well. How's that relationship been? You mentioned it there that you've got a good relationship with them, but is that like a daily occurrence? Is it weekly? How often are we in touch?
Yeah, we'll be speaking daily. And Evan Stoffer was over 3 games he actually managed to get to. That was great having him around. He made himself familiar with quite a few, having a pint in Legends around a couple of the games, which again I think that shows the type of people they are. Like they're dialed in and in tune with their supporters. They want to be part of that, and there's no airs and graces. That is how they want to come and experience, have a beer with fans, and participate in the decision making of the club. I think it's obviously when our owners are based in Vegas, communication is crucial. There's trust in us that are here on a day-to-day basis, And we want to, communicate as frequently as we can with them to make sure that information flows both ways. But really pleased with how that's going, and good people, really good people, and that I think that helps us, moving the club in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's half the battle, is having the right person and good people is what we want to hear. Away from the sort of ownership side of things, loads of great initiatives going on at the club at the moment. Programmes is one that I've seen quite a lot of comment on online. Also, the club took a decision to stop programmes, and that was publicised why. And there's been a fan-issued programme that's been for sale this season, going really well by all accounts and selling out. Does that demonstrate any sort of desire? Would there be a desire to bring programmes back?
Right now, the decisions that a difficult decision I would say as well, none of us wanted to stop doing the programme because we know the heritage and we know that it means a lot to people. The reality is, from a resourcing perspective, it didn't stack up for us to do anymore. I'm over the moon that the fan-led title's doing well, and I think our view would be, if we can help support them more, that would be a better approach than us looking to take it back in-house ourselves.
Perfect.
And then touching on the squad coming up in the next few weeks, there are obviously a few international call-ups, Jeremiah and Andrew, and then Shea Kearney as well, getting called up for internationals. That must be, it's another period where we can recognise these players as well. Yeah,
I mean, obviously it's becoming a bit of the norm for us now to have weekends off for international call-ups, which again I think is a sign of the investment in the squad, the focus on the development of young players with high potential. So it's great to see that recognition with Shea going with Northern Ireland. I know Freddie was in the running for Republic of Ireland under 21s as well, and Jeremiah and Andrew that are both part of seem to be stable parts of that under 21 squad. Amazing for local boy Andy to be in that squad, and I don't know about you, I feel a lot of pride when you see the local boys doing well on that. And with Jeremiah, I think this camp can become the highest or the highest capped under 21 international in Scottish history. So what does that show for the level that Jeremiah's been at for a few years? And it's great for the club to see that recognition. And we know, I have a lot of dialogue with different people at the SFA, we know that they're looking closely at our squad now and our young players to potentially come into the squads. John earlier in the season, Lucas Fife have featured in their age groups. So that's great testament to the work going on in the academy, but also great for the youngsters to show that the hard work, apply themselves, they can go and achieve those recognitions playing for Dunfermline Athletic.
Obviously, with the call off of the Airdrie game and then the game that was rearranged on the day of the semi-final, it does leave us with a busy April, but hopefully one we can thrive upon and get to where we want to be. Yeah,
I mean, look, it has challenges, but it can also create brilliant momentum, so we've got lots of games. I think you saw with the Ross County game that when we made changes, they came in and the boys performed really well. So we've got a strong squad that I think it's clear we're going to have to rely on a little bit of that rotation over the month of April. But isn't it great that we're going into April with something to play for in the league and something to play for in the cup? I'd give me that every day of the week
100%.
Rather than petering out towards the end of the season. So that momentum and that congestion, bring it on, I say.
And from when we've been speaking to players, that whole Saturday, Tuesday suits the players, that gets them out of training. So I think they're quite happy about that. One other player that's been recognised internationally is Alphonse Ahmad. He's been sort of playing at the AFCON for Mozambique. Does that kind of, a bit to your point earlier on, putting Dunfermline Athletic back on the map in terms of football, you must have felt very proud seeing him spurring out.
Brilliant for Fonzie to represent his country at AFCON. Great, obviously, a little bit of the prestige Dunfermline Athletic get from that. With Victor Wanyama last year, we created a fair bit of PR and a bit of noise in Africa. Some features done by BBC Africa, which reached up to 60 million people. So being able to build on that in Africa is nice for the club, and delighted for Alphonse. He's a great wee guy.
Perfect. Moving away from the club updates, David, a bit more sort of personal, and Logan and I speak to players and get a bit of background on them and sort of their career so far. So I think it's well publicised. You're a Pars fan. You've came into this position as a Dunfermline fan. How did that come about? Are you like everyone else and you're blaming your parents for that one?
100%. My dad has to take all responsibility for that. He was grew up a Dunfermline supporter, played in youth teams associated to Dunfermline back in the late 60s, played in school team with Leishman and others, so Pars fan from birth really, and came to my first game when I was 4 or 5 year olds. Sat in the family enclosure down here in the main stand when there was seats there, so got the bug from an early age, and it's always been a big part of my life ever since.
Were you a bit of a player when you were growing up, or?
Defined player. I was a not very good player.
Position?
Centre mid, but couldn't run, which was not ideal. Listen, love my football. Still play with a bunch of old boys on a Wednesday night. Just obsessed with the game,
And what sort of players were your role models growing up in that Dunfermline team?
So I've been really fortunate. I was born in 1980, so started coming to the game under Leishman. Ian McCall was one that stood out from that early spell. Then obviously my teenage years, the Bert and Dick era, Jackie McNamara would be one that jumps out, and then probably my the Calderwood era. Probably say the players in that Calderwood era were ones that I look back at and think probably they were maybe a level, or a group of them at a level. And I remember when we signed Skerla and we saw Skerla started playing here, I'm going, wow, how have we managed to get a player like Skerla? This is unbelievable. And it was always, and then Rossi and Nipper, what a back three that was. So it was a really great era, and then Craw and Brewster up front as well. Real great time of growing up with these players, and now it's lovely to see them. Now when you're shaking hands with them as the CEO, and you think, what the hell, I used to idolise you 10, 15, 20 years ago.
And is there any moments or games that kind of stick out that gave you that bug for the Pars?
Do you know, it's mad when I was 8, 9 year old, and Leishman's era to begin with, and I remember when we got promoted to the Premier League, and that season where we beat Souness's Rangers here 2-0, I think we beat Celtic at home that year as well. And when you're 7, 8, 9 year old, you just think that's the norm. That was like, and so that just became expectation at that, and really fortunate that little spell where there was some famous results like that. Obviously the Celtic League game and beating Rangers with Mark Smith's great cross come shot were special early moments. And I think throughout the years there's been other really special games. I remember when we played Falkirk in the early 90s in a Division 1 game at that time, and the kickoff was delayed to let supporters in. I think it was 30,000 in here, and we won. Derek Lang with the winner that day. So loads of great moments like that growing up, and been fortunate. We've had our lows, but we've also had some great highs over the last few years when I've been here as CEO as well.
The lows make the highs higher.
Well, that's absolutely. You have to savour those moments when you have like the Aberdeen and the Hibs games. I said to the players, and I also said to staff, you've got to savour those ones because they're great moments.
Yeah. And then sort of as you were growing up, how did you end up getting into the sports business, I suppose? Was that always your ambition? Very sports orientated growing up, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, obviously as discussed earlier, my lack of playing talent meant I had to, if I had an interest in a career in sport, it was probably going to lie off the field. And after I went to uni, didn't really know what I wanted to do, was working for a bank, bit of financial services, and then I went down to Liverpool Uni and I did an MBA in football business and used that as a sort of catalyst for career change into sports business, and I was fortunate to get a job right off the back of that in Everton in a sales role, and really just went from there, and it grew and developed. And so after a while it was like, right, actually this is, whether it's my niche or my calling, that was what I felt, this is where I want my career to be. I think it's always great if you can have a vocation as your job.
Never work a day in your life.
Exactly, yeah.
And were you still sort of watching the Pars from afar at that point?
100%. Still had my season ticket. Right. Still got a season ticket, in the stand. I'm not sure where it is, and it's like my old man sitting next to my dad somewhere in the main stand. But yeah, I've been coming here since I was a kid, and that'll never change. So when I was living abroad and when I was living down south, Pars TV was always a way of catching games, and I'd get back when I could for a game or two. And yeah, it might be from afar, and I know there's loads of guys out there like the same, like they might live away from here but still as passionate as they ever were about the football club.
Was it an easy decision to come and work for your team that you've supported all your days, or was it more of a difficult one from a personal point of view?
It was an easy decision, but because football business has been a career, it couldn't only be done on emotion. You know, the German guys had approached me. It was during a difficult time about whether I'd be interested in coming in, and it sort of fitted into some personal stuff that we wanted to come back to Scotland as a family as well. So it was a no-brainer to come on board. I think the German guys, obviously, all best intentions, but probably realised they weren't here day in, day out, you know, so they wanted to have someone on the ground to help run that format, you know, and it was a quick decision, and you know, one that, despite being, as we said earlier, lots of highs and lots of lows, something I'm very proud of, you know, to have you come through the stadium for the first time as a 5-year-old, to think as a 45-year-old you'd be the CEO and the chairman of the football club. It's a pinch me moment, you know, and special.
And obviously the day or the day in the life of a CEO, or the week of the life of a CEO, what does that look like for you? Obviously, it probably changes every week, but what is the general thing of it? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, I think obviously at a club the size of Dunfermline, a CEO's role is very different to the club to a CEO role at a Man City or an Arsenal or something like that. So you're very hands-on across the business. So I'd split my time with, I'd say 25% of my time might be around supporting the first team, around some various different aspects on that. Not coaching, I'd hasten to add, or anything like that, but really providing a support and just direction for various different departments. I would say then another 25% of my time might be on trying to help the commercial function of that, and then the other 50%, there's a lot that goes into football admin, the operations side of it, running a stadium, training ground investment, stakeholder relations, you know, dealing with board, etc. So it's a really, really varied role. I wish there was a few extra hours in the day, that's for sure.
And I take it you don't really get a chance to switch off. It's not a Monday, Friday 9 to 5. You're
certainly
on
not
a Saturday, and
no.
then I'm sure there's fallout on a Sunday as well.
Yeah, I go to bed dreaming about Dunfermline Athletic and wake up dreaming about it. At the moment,
join the club.
Going to bed dreaming about buses to Hampden and ticket prices, you know.
Good. And a fairly sort of simple question just to round us off for this section, but what's the best thing about heading up this football club?
I think it's special knowing that, you know, it's not just a job, right? It's more than that, and you know, the emotive connection that you've got to the club, that you're just so desperate for it to be successful, and the ambition to be fulfilled that we can all see here. So, you know, that's just the pride that you get from that, especially when it's going well. You know, when you have days and the board, like the Aberdeen board, and after the game were so gracious, so complimentary about how we delivered the game, how we've looked after them, how well we played. You get a huge amount of pride, a special feeling, you know, when people are speaking so warmly about the club like that. It's very hard to explain, and how to equate that to other business or other walks of life, you know.
And just to round things off, we've got a wee bit of a special question for you. As you said, you've been a Pars fan all your days. What is your all-time best Dunfermline five-a-side team?
Oof, that's a good one, that.
As I said off camera, don't do Robbie Fraser and pick 6 players.
I've got to pick 5, not 6, okay. Well, I'll have to start in goals then, Lee Butler. And I would say that's as much about the fact he's my mate, because we've had some great goalies. Westy, that we see at a lot of games, would obviously be up there too, but if I didn't go for Butts, I'd get a doing off camera from him on that. I mentioned him earlier. Skerla for me was a Rolls Royce of a player for the club. Probably Jackie McNamara. Was young when he was playing here, but the career he went on to have, and how he was in that season for us was unbelievable. Ian McCall, Mark 1, what a player, unbelievable again. And Craw, I thought Crawford was magnificent for us, and he'll get the goals. What a fives team that is.
If you had to choose a gaffer?
Neil Lennon, of course.
Yeah, good answer.
With James McPake as assistant manager, and Tids as well. Just might only had him for 60 days, but he's a good guy.
Perfect. Thank you for your time, David. It's been great chatting to you, Ricki. Thank you for joining me as well. This has been the Inside Athletic podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.